Alright, I am back with another build, and today we are doing a build that is the first of its kind on this channel. This is a build that was theory crafted, built, and, kind of worked out while on stream with the viewers in chat. So this is a build that the members of this channel and this community have come together to make, and it was super fun. Basically, the idea was to make a build inspired by JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because we kind of got talking about anime for a while. If you're interested in watching kind of how this came to be, and also the challenge run itself, check out the VOD that will be on the channel, kind of under the live section of the video page, or stick around until Saturday to catch the highlights. But either way, we kind of decided we wanted to make a JoJo build, and we decided it would be a 2-character build, one that is the stand user, and one that is the stand. If you're not familiar with JoJo, basically imagine anime people who project versions of themselves that are kind of like spirits, but not really, to fight for them, and it usually involves a lot of punching, although later on, the stand abilities would get very complex, and while I could try to replicate some of those more complex abilities, I decided to kind of keep the main identity of JoJo, and that is guy with spirit punches really quick, so I've decided to go for more of a punchy stand that gets some unique abilities between both builds. So this is a duo build today, but I didn't want to just kind of try and build a JoJo character. I wanted to kind of throw in a theming that is inspired by JoJo, but still fits in well with the idea of being a D&D character, or a Baldur's Gate character in this case. So that got me thinking, what if we played a Gith which had such potent psychic abilities that they could project an astral projection of themselves that they used to fight? So what this is going to be is this is going to be a Githyanki build that is kind of flavoured in a way that we are actually projecting like a version of ourselves that's going to be in close quarters combat, while the main build, which is what I'm going to be going over here, is going to be buffing that build and making it as strong as we can. This creates a super unique combat style that I think would be super fun to try as a quote-unquote lone wolf build, because technically you're not a lone wolf because you're two characters, but you're two characters coming together to make one really strong character. So I actually think playing a kind of solo run with this build would be super fun, but let's get into it. So I'm going to be mainly covering the stand user, that being the one who's actually going to be buffing the main combat fighter, and I'll get into that build towards the end, but it's not going to be a full deep dive, it will just be a Cliff Notes version. But let's get into the main thing. So we're going to want to be starting off as a bard. Now, in the stream, we kind of said that the stand user would have to be a cleric mixed with a battle master fighter. And I'll tell you why I haven't gone with that combination. The reason I decided not to go with battle master fighter is because since I wanted to make a unarmed, punchy stand, Commander's Strike, which was the main reason we were going for battle master, doesn't actually work. The reaction attack that you get from Commander's Strike cannot be used to make an unarmed strike. It needs to be a weapon attack. However, if you wanted to just give your stand a weapon, because that would be perfectly reasonable if you don't care about the JoJo theming and you just want to make this kind of Astral Projection build, then give that build a weapon, and then use Battlemaster 5, Cleric 7 to get everything that you would see here. However, since I've decided to go for an unarmed fighter for the stand, we're going to need something different, and trust me, you're gonna like how this works out. So, starting off as a bard, we're going to get a few things that are super important to this build. First up, our cantrips. Vicious Mockery. Now, in the JoJo anime, which I've seen pretty much all of, you actually see a lot of banter, back and forth, a lot of insult throwing, a lot of no, I will beat you, no, I will beat you. There's a lot of dialogue in addition to the fighting, so I actually think having a character that weaponizes that kind of anime dialogue is super cool, and Vicious Mockery is going to allow us to do that. I think it's super on theme for JoJo and will work out really well. And of course, friends. I mean, if you've seen Stardust Crusaders, and I guess Part 4 as well, you'll know why basically having friends kind of makes sense, because pretty much anyone the main protagonist fights eventually becomes an ally sooner or later, especially in Part 4, so friends works. As for our spells, I've kind of just gone for some utility options here, although I would actually sub out that for this, and I'll explain why. Dissonant Whispers, again, weaponizing that kind of dialogue to inflict fear. You know, when the badass protagonist like Jotaro or something says, something really cool and intimidating and the enemy gets frightened. This is literally that in spell form, which is awesome. Next up is Fairy Fire, allowing us to mark an enemy and allow our stand to attack with advantage against that enemy. Speak with animals. There was a dog in one season. They didn't talk to it though, but hey, it's a good utility spell, so let's pick it up. And finally, Featherfall. You and nearby allies gain immunity to falling damage. This is just a general really good spell to have anyway, so we might as well pick it up. Yes, there are other utility options here that we could grab, but I actually have a different way of getting those. Our starting instrument could be whatever you want. I've gone with a lute, but we're actually going to be removing that because I want this to be more about using our voice, so the whistle sounds a bit better, so be sure to take your instrument off. And finally, the stats, which are going to look strange. You have to remember that this is not meant to be a frontline fighter. If anything, the stand itself is supposed to be protecting the user. So we've gone for some lower physical stats and some higher mental stats. Dexterity and Constitution at 12, because even though these are a bit behind the curve for what you would normally see for a build on this channel, this is still going to work out really nicely for this strategy and adds that extra bit of challenge. But it does allow us to bump up our intelligence and wisdom to 14 each, allowing these to both be high, meaning we can succeed those skill checks way more often, especially with the fact that we're a Gith and can use astral knowledge to gain proficiency in all skills of any category, so you're going to be a great skill monkey with this build. And finally, we have Charisma at 16. It is our main spellcasting stat, so we want it high, and as such, also being able to persuade, intimidate, and deceive is super good for this build. Speaking of, let's get Deception, Intimidation, and Persuasion proficiency, as well as Animal Handling and Survival from the folk hero background. We are an anime protagonist, quote-unquote, so being able to get inspiration for saving the day makes sense, even if the proficiencies are a bit eh. Next up at level 2, I am going to be just quickly showing off the multi-class I want to take for this build. This multi-class isn't 100% necessary, but I still think it'd be nice to pick it up, and you'll see why, but you can take these multi-class levels, if at all, whenever you like. We're going to be jumping over to Wizard. Now, this may seem like a strange option, but hear me out. We're going to get a few things from this, namely we're going to get some extra utility cantrips. Minor Illusion will allow you to summon a kind of illusory version of your stand to distract enemies outside of combat. Mage Hand is just on theme for being a Gith, and the last one can be whatever you like. Since we're going to be more of a defensive character, let's go with Blade Ward, so if we need it, we can have a little bit of resistance. Next up, our spells, and I would say you have a few options here. I'm going to be picking up Mage Armour because you could cast it on your stand to get them a bit more AC, because our stand's stats are going to be a little bit weird, and you'll see why, so it might be worth having this up. We can also grab Shield, just giving us ourselves an extra little bit of defense, and then we can also pick up our typical utility spells, that being Long Strider and Enhanced Leap here. And then you've got a few other options, and I'm going to recommend Find Familiar to get a small remote stand, and also Expeditious Retreat for the secret Joestar technique. And for our prepared spells, I would say these are probably good. At Wizard level 2, we're going to be able to pick our subclass, and I'm going to suggest we go for Divination. We're only going to be taking 2 levels of Wizard here, but just because we kind of want a subclass, but really you can mess around with that and just take 1 level if you want. And Divination is one of the best kind of just little dips you can get, with Divination giving us the ability to use Portent. After each long rest, you gain 2 random Portent die. During the day, you can use a reaction to change the die of any attack roll or saving throw rolled near you to one of your Portent die. This is going to allow you to tell your enemy what their next line is before they actually say it. There's going to be so many JoJo references in this build, and if you don't understand them, I apologize. But this was what we came up with on stream, and I wanted to kind of, you know, really show it off. As for our spells, we're going to be able to get a couple of others. I'm going to recommend you can grab Protection from Evil and Good to give your stand a bit more staying power against certain types of enemies. And the last one can be kind of whatever you want. It really doesn't matter, so we can just grab our last utility option, Disguise Self. And yes, as you can see, we have a nice selection of prepared spells here. Now, another reason we wanted to go wizard was so we now have access to scrolls, meaning that if you wanted to bump your intelligence up and use that to cast some high-level spells that you learn from scrolls, you can absolutely do that. And if you want to equip like something like the Headband of Intelligence to give yourself more charisma, and then put those stat points into not charisma, sorry, intelligence, and put those stats into something else, you absolutely can. Feel free to play around with all the stuff on this build as per usual. But we're going to jump back over to Bard now, and we're pretty much going to stay there. This is going to get us a few things like Jack of all trades, allowing us to add half of our proficiency bonus, rounded down, to any ability checks we are not proficient in, so we're an even better skill monkey. We're also going to get Song of Rest, allowing us to take an extra short rest, which is awesome. And then finally, we do get one final spell here, and I'm not entirely sure what I would want to take. Heroism feels pretty on point for kind of like an anime protagonist type feel, so you can go with that. Or something like Tasha's Hideous Laughter, if you're thinking of that one episode of Stardust Crusaders, that could also work. Definitely makes a difference when I actually know about the source material I'm making a video for. Anyways, as for our subclass, we're actually going to be going with College of Law. If we're playing more into that kind of using anime dialogue as a weapon, then College of Law is perfect, meaning that we can now use our Bardic Inspiration to impose penalties on our enemies, as well as bonuses on our allies, which is super, super good. We're also going to be able to get some more skill expertise and proficiencies, and we can go with kind of whatever we like here. I quite like going with investigation, insight, and perception, and we can take expertise in persuasion and intimidation, because, you know, JoJo protagonists tend to be quite intimidating. As for our spells, take whatever you like here, it really doesn't matter, but my personal choice, especially for this early game kind of spell, is Phantasmal Force. This is going to allow you to deal 1d6 psychic damage, again kind of playing on that psychic thing, which is also a Githyanki thing, not just kind of like a anime thing. And of course this damage type of this spell will change to the last type of damage the creature suffered, allowing your stand to do even more bludgeoning damage with their flurry of attacks with this spell. Kind of. Sort of. Not really. It's cool, and I want it. Leave me alone. And also because we're a Githyanki, we're actually going to be getting Misty Step at this level, which is awesome. At Bard level 4, we're going to be getting our first feat, and I really just want to take an ability score improvement to bump up our charisma to make those spell save DCs as high as possible. As for our cantrip, we can pick one more, and we can go with light, just because. And we do get to choose another spell at this level. Enhanced ability can make you an even better skill monkey, allowing you to get advantage on those ability checks that you give yourself proficiency in with Astral Knowledge. Although I just realised I forgot to do something, so we're actually going to replace a spell at this level as well. I'm thinking we can get rid of Heroism and replace that with Invisibility. Now, we're going to be getting greater invisibility later, so you might want to swap this out then. However, for now, Invisibility is going to be a really interesting choice for this build, because if you cast this on your stand, it gives them that translucent look, and it actually does look like an Astral Projection. Again, once we get greater invisibility, this is going to bump the build up even higher. But let's pick it up now anyway. Next up at Bard level 5, we're going to be getting our Font of Inspiration, meaning that we now recover our Bardic Inspiration on a short as well as a long rest. And we also get improved Bardic Inspiration. Our Bardic Inspiration has now been bumped up to a D8. As for our spells, we do get another one at this level, including up to level 3 spells, and I'm going to recommend grabbing Glyph of Warding. Now, again, we're not necessarily playing as a Killer Queen here, but we can set those bomb traps up to be able to catch our foes off guard, and again, it is very JoJo to set a trap ahead of time, and then act like you outsmarted your opponent when they inevitably fall for it. At Bard level 6, we're going to be able to get our Counter Charm ability, which means for 3 turns, we can have advantage on saving. You and our allies, so us and our stand, are going to have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. For 3 turns. It's kind of, whatever, but, you know, we might as well grab it. As for our spells, we do get to choose another spell at this level, and it's entirely up to you whatever you want to take. I might personally grab, let's grab Fear, because again, if we wanted to lean into that, like, intimidating protagonist angle, then that could work, but there are plenty of other options here to go with if you so choose. And here we are. One of the main reasons we went for Lore Bard in the first place is magical secrets, because this is going to give us access to spells that we wouldn't normally have access to, and there's a couple here that I really want. The first one is probably an obvious choice. I want haste, allowing us to cast haste on our stand, allowing them to be faster, have more armor class, and be able to gain an additional action. I want our stand to be able to punch as many times in a turn as possible, and giving them haste is one of the best ways to do that. But my second spell choice here is a bit of a weird one. I want Sanctuary. Because here's the thing, with Sanctuary, right? This means that once we've cast all our buffs on our stand, we can then cast Sanctuary on ourselves to make it so the enemies can't hit us and are forced to fight our stand. So even though we're a bit of a squishier character, we are still able to kind of hang back and give all of those buffs and lend support without needing to put ourselves in danger. So Sanctuary is actually a super powerful option on this build. And again, if you went the cleric route, you obviously get this a lot sooner. But I kind of like grabbing it here, and obviously I like all the stuff that Bard gives us, and being able to get both this and the Bard stuff is super awesome. So getting haste and Sanctuary here is the best way to go. At Bard level 7, we're going to be able to get some more spells, including level 4 spells, and as I said, I want greater invisibility. Turn a creature invisible. Attacks against it have disadvantage, it attacks with advantage, and you can stay invisible even if you use an action. However, you have to pass an ever-increasing a stealth check with ever-increasing difficulty. Now, again, this is basically going to give our Astral Projection that actual translucent look to make it look good, but it's also going to allow us to heavily buff our stand, allowing them to basically gain advantage on every attack and be unable to be targeted unless they are detected, which they won't be unless they fail a stealth check. Which actually means, if you have an invisible stand with Sanctuary up, your enemy can't attack either of you. So it's actually a really good way to kind of lock your enemies into not being able to do anything. So definitely want to pick this up. Then also at Bard level 8, we're going to be able to choose another spell in addition to a feat. And again, I think I just want to have our charisma at the highest level possible in order to be able to use, even in order to make that spell save DC as high as it will go. And again, we do get another spell at this level, and I want to grab 2, so I'm going to be replacing a spell as well. I want freedom of movement to be able to buff our stand to be immune to stun. Difficult terrain can't slow them down, and they can't be paralyzed or restrained. Doesn't require concentration and lasts until a long rest, so pretty good. And like I say, I am going to replace a spell. Let's replace, I don't know, Fear at this point, since we're going to have better concentration spells. And I want to grab Dimension Door. This is going to allow you to teleport yourself and your stand as well to a place you can see. I think this works as kind of an upgraded version of Misty Step, which can benefit both you and your stand at the same time. Pretty good. Next up at Bard level 9, we are going to be getting some more spells, including level 5 spells. And I don't really care about any of them. I mean, none of these are anything that I would particularly want. However, I'm going to kind of go for a funny option here, and I'm going to pick Confusion, because the plots and the powers and everything about JoJo does get very, very confusing. So confusing that even your enemies themselves will kind of just be confused at what's going on. So, as a meme pick, it's kind of funny, but pick whatever you like here. And finally, at Bard level 10, we're going to get another bump up to our Bardic Inspiration. It is now a D10, the highest it will go, which is awesome. We do also get 2 more skill expertise, and I'm going to grab that Insight and Investigation, because I think it is really cool to be a highly investigative character. We're going to get another cantrip for the memes. We also do get another spell at this level, and take whatever you like. Again, it really doesn't matter. I would say, I don't know. Feign Death, because, well, no, it's a bad spell, but, you know, there was that one scene where Jotaro was able to pretend to be dead. So, you know, whatever. Take whatever you like, it really doesn't matter. And we also are going to get some more magical secrets at this level, and there is a couple that I want. Death Ward, allowing us to give our stand another buff, allowing it to recover from death once. And secondly, Fire Shield. Fire Shield does not break Sanctuary. So you can cast this and then have it up, and then when your Sanctuary does end up running out, if you decide to be offensive with something like Vicious Mockery, your enemy is still going to be punished for attacking you. So you can kind of stack things together and kind of be a really tricky to damage fighter, but take whatever you like here, it really doesn't matter. If you want an actual summonable stand that isn't just another party member, Conjure Elemental will work really well, especially since we do have 6 level spell slots, so you would be able to make the Myrmidons with that spell. And that is the first of our 2 builds. The second is our stand over here. But what you're going to get with this first build, that being the stand user, is a ton of powerful utility spells for making your stand as powerful as it can possibly be, allowing you to buff it with invisibility, haste, and allowing you to keep yourself safe with Fire Shield and Sanctuary, also using things like Longstrider and Bardic Inspiration to buff it up. You're going to have a lot of options. In fact, I am going to cast Mage Armour here on it as well, because why not? But I will get into the equipment later. I want to get into the stand first, because I'm only going to quickly go over its levels and go over the reasons why I chose them. So, let's get into it. I've gone for a level 4 Rogue, level 6 Monk, and level 2 Fighter. Monk obviously for the unarmed damage and being able to use things like Flurry of Blows, and we've gone with Open Hand so we can get the passive to add psychic damage, because I think that makes a ton of sense. So we have a ton of damage on our unarmed strikes, and also things like Wholeness of Body to give us an extra bonus action, meaning that if we really wanted to go crazy on our attacks in a single round, we absolutely could. In addition to the 2 levels of Fighter giving us Action Surge to give us even more attacks per turn, and also Rogue to give us that double bonus action, so we can punch even more, meaning that if we're hasted and using Action Surge and Wholeness of Body, we can get so many punches in a single turn that it's actually broken. So let's get into the equipment for both builds, and I'm going to use this screen because this is actually kind of cool for showing this off. So let's get into the equipment for both builds and why I chose what I did. First up is the Circlet of, on the stand user, is the Circlet of Psionic Revenge. When you succeed a saving throw, the foe that caused the throw takes 1d4 psychic damage. Githyanki also gain a +1 bonus to Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws. We're a Githyanki, so I wanted to use this, but it's not entirely necessary. You can pick whatever you like here. Like I said, the Headband of Intellect would work really, really well for those wizard spells, but it's entirely up to you. I've also gone with the Cloak of Protection for just that extra little bit of armor class. I also have the Psionic Ward Armour. If the item detects that the wearer is a Gith, they have resistance to psychic damage, so an extra resistance is always nice. And also if the wearer succeeds a saving throw against a spell, they regain a bit of hit points, again, also nice. I've also gone with the Wondrous Gloves. Your armor class increases by 1, nice. In addition, if you have Bardic Inspiration, you gain 1 more use of it, awesome. And finally, and this is a weird choice, I've gone with the Slinging Shoes. Returns to its owner when thrown. On a hit, deal 2 to 8 psychic damage. This is like the most batshit insane move ever. Picking up your shoe, throwing it, and then having it return to you, dealing psychic damage. So again, on theme of being a Gith. This is just because JoJo is a very bizarre adventure, and this is a bizarre attack. Replace this with whatever you like, but I thought it would just be really funny to just throw your shoes at somebody. As for our accessories, I've got the Spellcrux Amulet to give us an extra spell slot. Again, this will let us cast those high-level spells more often if we want to. I've also gone with the Spurred Band, again leading into the secret Joestar technique. During combat, when you start your turn with 50% or less hit points, you gain momentum, giving you increased movement speed, allowing you to run away when things get hairy. Again, the secret technique, but replace this with whatever you like. But now one of the most important things about this build, the True Love's Embrace and True Love's Caress combo. True Love's Embrace is going to allow you to cast Warding Bond that lasts until your next long rest on your stand, which is wearing the other ring, meaning that your stand is going to gain the effects of Warding Bond, meaning that they gain resistance to all damage, a +1 to their armor class and saving throws, and each time they take damage, the person who cast Warding Bond on them will take the same amount of damage. So here's the thing, Because in JoJo, the stand is an extension of yourself, if your stand takes damage, so do you. This makes 100% sense, and for the sake of doing an astral projection, it would make sense that if your projection takes damage, then so do you, like if it's mental damage. So it absolutely makes sense for them to use these rings. It is super on theme and works really well. In fact, I can kind of show off the casting of it, if you just give me a second. Meaning that, yeah. Now we have a resistance to everything here, a +1 to our armor class, making it a total of 20 with the whole mage armor thing, and you know, and also we're also going to be getting that shared damage, and we also get a buff to our saving throws as well, which is awesome. I feel like this is just a super cool option that is super on theme for the build. And like I said, as for, well, because again, I'm not really intending this build to actually be in combat, I've not gone for any weapons, because I kind of want it to be, you just buff the stand and then let the stand attack. However, if you wanted to, obviously you could just put weapons on this build, attack anyway, and be super strong, but I kind of wanted to go for the challenge of only attacking with the stand. Speaking of, let's get to it. For the stand, I've got the Scabby Pugilist Circlet. When your weapon and unarmed attacks deal an additional 2 damage, or surrounded by 2 or more foes, allowing you to get into the thick of things and deal more damage that way. You can replace this with whatever you like. This was just a solid kind of earlier option, but there's definitely better things out there later into the game, so play around with this slot. Next up is the Cloak of Displacement. At the beginning of the wearer's turn, the cloak activates, granting enemies disadvantage on attack rolls against the wearer. This kind of gives you the visual effect of blur, meaning that even if you're not invisible, you're still going to kind of get that ethereal, astral kind of effect on it. We've also gone for the Graceful Cloth. You gain Cat's Grace and increase your Dexterity score by 2 to a maximum of 20, allowing us to have 20 Charisma on 20 Dexterity, my apologies, on this build. As well as and I've also gone for the Hell Dusk Gloves. You gain a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC. Your weapon attack and your unarmed attacks are going to deal an additional 1 to 6 necrotic damage and can possibly inflict bleeding. Of course, this is an Act 3 option, so if you want to use the downgraded flawed Hell Dusk Gloves in the meantime, you absolutely can. You just bump down a damage die. And then finally, the Bone Spike Boots, giving you a +1 bonus to armor class and saving throws as long as you are not wearing armor or holding a shield. Your jump distance is increased, and you can use Brutal Leap to do a jump that could possibly knock your enemies prone. Now, for this build, I will just quickly go over the stats because the stand is using a feat. We've kind of just mainly gone for ability score improvements to bump up our dexterity, but our first feat is very obviously Tavern Brawler, meaning that your strength modifier is added twice to the damage and attack rolls. And if you use the Potion of Everlasting Vigour to get this up to 20, that means you're going to be doing a ton of damage. You'll be dealing, I think, a +10 on your attack and damage rolls with your unarmed strikes, because even though our dexterity and strength will be the same, it will use strength as well. But even if your dex is higher, you still get your strength modifier added onto the dex modifier, so make sure you pick up Tavern Brawler. I would start with a 17 in strength, bump up with Tavern Brawler, and then use the Potion of Everlasting Vigour to get that to 20, and level up the rest of your stats accordingly. And we do have a 10 in Wisdom, which is a bit weird for a monk, but again, if you do what I did and cast Mage Armour on this build, you're still going to be getting a ton of AC. Constitution is a little bit low, but that's okay. We don't mind that as much. I think that's it. So yeah, that is the builds. As you'll see in the combat footage, this is a supremely fun playstyle. Obviously, this kind of standard super flurry rush monk build is already super strong, but being able to buff it with a character that can't really take damage but can also, you know, just give them a ton of buffs to make them even stronger, you see the combination potential here is super strong. And like I say, I think this would be perfect for a lone wolf run. So thank you to everyone who came out on the stream and kind of got me to do this build. It was super fun, and I really enjoyed it. Speaking of, again, streams, I think not this weekend, so not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, which I believe is December the 2nd, I think I am going to attempt to stream for a second time at around the same time, and we'll see how it goes. It's not 100% set in stone yet. I will put up a community post kind of around the middle of the week, maybe on the Wednesday or the Thursday, if I have the go-ahead, so we'll see if that happens, but that's kind of my plan. As for the other stuff, I have a day off of work tomorrow, so my plan is to pre-record a ton of videos in that time and try and get a bunch of build requests done and then have those upload throughout the week. So you might not see me kind of like fulfilling build requests or anything kind of like right away or making certain videos or whatever, but you are going to still see a hopefully consistent upload schedule on the channel next week, so I don't miss any days, because I've missed days for 2 weeks in a row now and I don't want to do that. So yeah, and like I say, on Saturday you're going to be getting the highlight reel for these streams, so look forward to that. Yeah, I don't think there's much housekeeping stuff. Oh, tell you what, actually there is. We are at like 2,800 subscribers now, I think, which means I want to see if we could get to 3,000 before, I think, December 5th, which would be 1 month from when we hit 2,000. So I want to see if we can kind of hit that 3,000 mark before the month is up. But yeah, I think that is going to do it for me. I will see you all next time, and I hope you have a good one. JoJo.
Come a little closer. If this ship hits the ground, we're dead.
Don't waste a step.
Listen!
Here we go again.
Wetter than 10-ton Tavern.
Cutting to the chase. There goes nothing.